Morning and welcome to the Jefferson County Commission meeting. It's a special session. Today, March 29, 2024, it's 9:30 a.m. Purpose of the special session is to hold a workshop on proposed creation. I'm not speaking in the mic, my apologies. On the proposed creation of the tax increment financing district that's to be designated Jefferson County Redevelopment District Number 1 Hilltop House Hotel. We have with us today online the attorneys from Spillman, Thomas, and Battle to give us an update. These attorneys, the commission has hired to review the TIF district and give us legal advice on these districts, and certainly answer any questions that we have. Would you like to turn it over to them?
Yeah, I recommend turning it over to Josh Darrell. I'll give you an introduction of what TIFs are and where we are in the process, and then we can answer questions from there.
Okay, Josh, if you want to give us introduce yourself and your team, and then give us an overview, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And Eddie, thank you for organizing this meeting. As you mentioned, my name's Josh Jarrell, and I'm an attorney with Spillman, Thomas, and Battle. I work in our Morgantown office. I'm being joined by my law partner, Deborah Lee Allen, who is, I think, over presently in Jefferson County, perhaps very close to your commission meeting. And she's been helping me on this project. We were engaged a couple weeks ago by the county commission to take a look at the tax increment financing aspects of the Hilltop Hotel project over in Harpers Ferry. And so we haven't really been involved for very long, and we're kind of getting up to speed on it. We spent some time looking at some of the records that Eddie was able to share with me. So I'll preface everything with, I'm not sure that I have all the information, but what we were able to look at were the property tax TIF application that was prepared last summer. We also were able to review the agenda items and minutes for a number of the previous meetings the commission undertook when it looked at these projects in the past couple years. So I think the first one was back in November of 2022 or so was the first meeting minutes that I was able to look at. So that's about the universe of the documentation I've been able to see. So I apologize if I'm missing anything, and certainly fill us in to the extent you're aware of anything we're missing. Deborah, before I proceed, do you want to say anything, or are you good?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So with that out of the way, I guess I'll just, I want to start by saying, like, this is a working session, and we're honored to be here to work on behalf of the commission. I've not had a chance to meet any of you in person. So, I mean, to the extent we can have a conversation and make this fairly informal, that would be kind of more my style. But we're happy to, proceed in the course that you guys like. So feel free to pepper me with questions, interrupt, interject, raise hands. I don't know how you want to do it, but I'm happy to kind of just do this as informally as we can. In general, tax increment financing has been around in West Virginia for about 24 years or so, 23 years. It was created pursuant to like a constitutional referendum and amendment that was ratified in 2001 or so, 2002, to the West Virginia Constitution, and it allowed counties and municipalities to use property taxes to finance these development projects. So it's been on the books for a while, and there's been a number of TIF projects enacted and implemented all over the state of West Virginia. In the materials that I provided to the commission, I did reference a annual report The development office, now called the Department of Economic Development, files a report annually with the Joint Committee on Government and Finance on TIF districts, and it tries to capture and inventory everything that's been going on across the state. When I looked at that, the most recent one they had available was a couple of years old, but there was over 50 TIF projects. So these aren't, that unique, although it is a little unique over there on this project. But in general terms, TIF is the concept of leveraging this future increase in property tax valuations, or in the case of excise tax districts, sales taxes that can be captured, and leveraging those increases to finance current project development within a defined boundary. So the county commission in this case is required to kind of work, in this case we're working with a developer. They've identified the parcels. My understanding is that the developer owns or controls each of the parcels in the proposed district. And you set a boundary, and that becomes this discrete geographic area within which the property will be monitored and assessed over time. That becomes your TIF district. So as the projects are defined in your application that we looked at, the developer proposes to use the TIF to finance improvements within that project. Typically, these are going to be eligible project costs are going to be public infrastructure related costs. They can be also used for demolition, earth moving, site development, but usually you're talking about public infrastructure being roads and waterways and stormwater, gas lines, and pretty much anything you can think of is usually included within the concept of a project plan, so that can be captured and financed within that project plan. Backing up a little bit here. So what happens is when you establish the TIF district, the county assessor is going to certify a base assessed value. So that becomes essentially a floor. So any taxes that are being collected within that district before the creation of the district are going to be retained and still collected and used in the ordinary course. However, as the project progresses, as the improvements are implemented and built and constructed, those improvements add value to the district. And that value, the difference between your base assessed value and each subsequent year thereafter during the life of the district, is going to be compared to a current value. And the difference between your base and your current value is your tax increment. And that tax increment is going to be collected each year by your sheriff, and it will be deposited into a special fund. That special fund can be used to finance improvements within the district on a pay-as-you-go basis. So you can build them in one-off little chunks. If you want to do a sidewalk here or some street lights there, but you're kind of limited in the scope and effectiveness of what you can do on a pay-as-you-go basis, depending on the district. The other way you can finance the projects is typically through TIF obligations, which are usually bonds. So the bonds that can be issued out of the district would be secured by a pledge on that TIF fund and a lien on that fund. And then the bonds would be sold. They can be privately placed, or they can go to the public markets. There's different ways that it happens. And the TIF fund is used to repay those bonds over the life of the district. If your district is very successful, you might pay, your TIF district, your TIF district has a life of typically 30 years from the date of the order creating it. So your TIF bonds cannot exceed that time frame, or other obligations out of the TIF district. Thank you. However, if your TIF fund is doing well, if your TIF district is doing well, you can pay those obligations off faster, and you might be able to reinvest those monies in other projects within the district and that are consistent with your plan. Or you can come back to the county and you can look at modifying that plan or amending it, or you can terminate the district early. So I don't know, I'm kind of talking a little extemporaneously here off the cuff. So let me take a moment to pause and just let you guys, ask questions if you have any.
Yes, Josh, I have a question for you. If they sell bonds and let's just say they pay those bonds off early, I know you say the TIF has a 30-year life. Will that, once the bonds are paid off, will the TIF district, I guess, expire earlier than the 30-year life, or how will that work?
Well, the commission would need to act to dissolve or terminate if it's not been, it'll statutorily expire after 30 years. But if you wanted it to terminate sooner, you would have to take some formal action. If there's obligations outstanding, you can't. The TIF Act doesn't permit that. But if there's not anything outstanding, there's not any ongoing costs. If your project plan, now the other thing you could do is you might have things within your plan, even though the TIF bonds have been issued and paid, you might have other things within your project plan that have not been completed yet. So you might not want to terminate, but again, that would be at the discretion of the governing body.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions, commissioners?
Yes, this is Jane Tabb. I have a question. I'm just trying to understand this. We've been over it a couple of times. So in what is proposed, the TIF district is just the hilltop property. Am I correct?
It looks to me that the district is largely, if not entirely, comprised of tax parcels that are controlled by your project developer.
I didn't get.
But I don't know for sure. I'd have to relook at that.
Okay.
Or if they're here, I'm sure they could speak to that.
We have a representative here from the project, and we have John Stump on. John or Laurel's live. John's online. Would one of y'all want to answer that?
Sure, happy to. The district is entirely the entirety of the district is the Hilltop House Hotel development. I mean, Josh is correct that all of the properties are owned by the developer, but the borders of the TIF district, thus the entirety of the TIF district is just the Hilltop House Hotel development.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is that if it's implemented, will be assessed on all property owners in Jefferson County, or is there a smaller district besides that will pay into the TIF?
Only those properties that are within the TIF district, only the incremental taxes on those properties will go into the TIF fund. It's important to note that there's no increased property, the levy doesn't change. And this is entirely, it doesn't impact any property owners outside of the TIF district. So no incremental increases in taxes or taxes period from property owners outside the TIF district will be paid into the TIF fund.
I think that's a concern for a lot of our citizens to understand who's paying into the fund. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, John.
Good morning. This
Certainly.
is Commissioner Kraus. I have a quick question. It does, okay, I'd like to know, it sounds to me like everyone here is all for this. I'm still trying to learn more, and I'd like to know from our attorneys who are representing the commission, can you tell me any negative effects from TIF, please? All I'm hearing is how you know, it's very good and that's fine. I'd like to know what the downfalls could be, please.
Well, I mean, the downfall, I don't know. I mean, there are certainly some examples across the state of underperforming TIF districts. You know, if there are bonds, let me just, I don't know exactly where you're going. I can't really predict everything that's going to happen, but you know, if bonds are issued and they default, for example, that risk is going to be carried by the bondholder and the developer. The county's credits are not pledged. There's no, in fact, there's a prohibition in the TIF Act, you know, from any obligations having recourse to the county. So, you know, I don't, you know, happy to speak to you guys, you know, further about it. I don't know exactly. I can't really come up with like what are the downsides. Usually TIF it's an economic development tool. It's one of many across the state. I'm not advocating for it here necessarily. I'm just telling you, like, it's usually used to facilitate new development, and it's usually used in the concept of a public-private partnership in which the private party and the public entities are participating, and there's skin in the game by both sides. So I'm sure they could speak to how much skin they have on this project, and I don't want to go there, but usually it's meant to drive new development. And sometimes it doesn't work, you know, sometimes the projects fail, sometimes they stagnate, sometimes if the project doesn't go, you know, you don't get what you anticipate developing, and that might be a downside that you would look at. But it takes time for a TIF district to kind of get established. It takes time for it to ramp up, so it'll take time to understand whether it succeeds or fails.
How many TIFs are there across the state?
There's over 50 property tax TIF districts that I'm aware of.
Sorry, sir, did you say 15 or 50?
50, at least 50 or more. However, you know, they do lapse after, you know, the term expires. So I think, according to that most recent report that I saw, there was about 55 property tax TIF districts. Now there's also 5 excise tax TIF districts, which are sales tax TIF districts. Those are different from property tax. And those have to be approved and authorized by not only the Department of Economic Development, but also the full legislature. And in your case in Jefferson County, the legislature did act to authorize a excise tax TIF district for this project, which is interesting. And I should have mentioned this sooner, Commissioner. You have an excise tax district that's already been approved. And the commission has already acted to submit the application, creating that district to the development office. And the development office has responded to that application. When it responded, it said, we approve your application, but we're making conditional on the county creating a property tax TIF district, which would overlap. It would be the same boundary as your excise tax district as I understand it, and John Stump could speak to this. But you have the concept of two tax increment finance districts for this project. One, a sales tax district, and a second, the property tax district. For the excise tax district, you can't even do that unless the application and the project can demonstrate to the state of West Virginia that the private investment will exceed $75 million in the first 2 years. So that's not any state incentive or anything. That's just private money. And that happened before you got to the property tax piece. Last summer, it looked like the county was considering the creation of the property tax application. It noticed a public hearing. You had a public hearing either in July or August of last summer. And that was when the commission paused everything and kind of, I guess that's where we are now. Like in the interim, it looked like you guys were sort of considering some things, and then the application kind of has languished for 6 months or so. And now Eddie, reached out to, I guess, through an RFP, that we responded to, and that's how we got involved to look at this property tax piece. But the property tax piece can't really be looked at in a vacuum. I think it needs to be considered in the totality of all of these facts. And that excise tax stuff in the background is out there. Again, like all that's still in the commission's sort of domain. You have not taken the final action to create the excise tax district either. So both of those things still need to occur if this district is going to happen. But does that answer your question at all, Commissioner?
It helps. Thank you. I do have just a couple more questions for you. Number one, I have been made aware, I mean, certainly not a secret, but there is a case against the Hilltop District that was heard last week. And I believe that we are pending a decision on that from a 3-judge panel. Are you aware of this?
Did you say it's a lawsuit about the TIF district?
It is, yes, thank you.
That might be a question better answered by John Stump. He's on here too.
Whoever can
Yeah.
answer.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, we're not, the Hilltop House developer itself, Swan, is not involved in the case. It's a case that was brought by 5 or 6 individuals against the West Virginia Development Office.
Okay.
There was and it's just to be clear, it's not a case attempting to invalidate a TIF district. The case was brought questioning the constitutionality of the Tourism Development District Act.
Right.
So my understanding is that it was heard first in Jefferson County, and the court dismissed the case. Then the case was refiled in Kanawha County with some minor changes to the pleadings. It was dismissed, at the circuit court level. There was a hearing on the 19th of this month at the Intermediate Court of Appeals. It was, and we're waiting a ruling on that.
Okay.
But it's,
right. Yes, sir.
that's correct.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay. No, that's it.
Yes, so certainly I definitely think that we shouldn't move forward with anything until we hear about that. It certainly may be ruled unconstitutional. But the other question I had is these owners of Swan, from what I understand, they're extremely wealthy people. Why do they need tax help from the county?
Well, every project has a budget, right?
Mhm.
So in order for the project to be viable, they're asking for incentives, because the reality is, and I'm not a hotelier, but when you're talking about building approximately 120 rooms and an investment of over $100 million, the math becomes very difficult. So that's why in order to build a hotel of this magnitude and this standard, that would be a credit to Jefferson County as opposed to someone putting a much lesser project on that spot. The folks at Swan have requested the assistance of the county and the state to allow them to build something that without the incentives simply wouldn't be financially viable.
Okay.
Remind me again, John, what is the total investment of the Hilltop House project?
Well, the estimated investment's between 125 and 150 million dollars.
Thank you. All right. Does any other commissioners have questions?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we have a couple. Yes.
Yeah, this is Jane Tabb again. Just from my previous notes, I want to confirm my understanding. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that this TIF financing and the bond would cover the cost of water, sewer, roads, and a parking garage. I think that's what it was specified for. And then
That's correct. That's correct, Commissioner. Infrastructure, but the parking garage being the major piece of that.
And then once, the facility was built, that is, those pieces of the project are not owned by the developer. They're turned over to public entities to operate them. Am I correct or not?
The utilities and the roads certainly will be turned over. The parking garage, Swan will continue to operate the parking garage, but it will be free to the public.
Okay.
So it'll be available for anybody that wants to use it. Of course, there's a permanent easement to the overlook for any member of the public. So it's publicly available infrastructure.
Okay. That was one part I wanted to understand also.
May I comment on that quickly? And the parking garage would be underground, which was a major topic of debate in the town of Harpers Ferry.
Okay.
And also there would be ingress and egress for trucks to come in and out of the parking garage underground on that road without going through the neighborhood,
Oh.
which was another major
Yes, well,
topic of debate. Raged
Awesome.
for 15 years.
Yes.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
You mentioned, sir, that the commission has not taken final action to create the excise tax TIF district. What is that final action that we would need to take in order to create it?
The way, from what I was able to review, Commissioner, it looked like the only thing you guys need to do for the excise tax district is satisfy the development office's conditions. Then you would need to, once those are satisfied, one of which is a property tax application. The second was they requested certain loan documentation related to the construction loan. And then from there, it looked like you would need to set a hearing and adopt an order, a final order creating and establishing the district.
Yeah, I thought that we would need to do all that to create the property tax district, not the excise tax.
So you've already done everything on the excise tax district, as I understand it, and John can correct me because he's been working on this longer. But I think that's right. And then, but the property tax, to the extent you guys are required to establish a property tax TIF district, you did already have a hearing. You under the TIF Act, for the property TIF Act, you draft your application. You have to provide a copy of it to the levy bodies in the county and the state who are impacted by the TIF, and then so that's your Board of Education, the town of Harpers Ferry, and the State Development Office. And then you have to do that 30 days before your hearing, and then you have your hearing. And after your hearing, you have a meeting, and you adopt it. Typically, this is the process you typically would proceed under. You would adopt an order a resolution authorizing the submission of that application. So on the property TIF side, the county has already done everything except adopt a resolution authorizing the resolution. Adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of the application. That said, I think, you know, when you looked at this application last year, the county might want to have the application revised a little bit. It's missing a couple things I think that you would want to see. But I don't know that, you know, what you did prior is necessarily, you know, we can talk about it in closed session, but I think that you could proceed under what you've done already, maybe with some supplemental information. Alternatively, you just start over with the process, in which case, you know, the SWAN team would work to kind of update and revise that application. One thing you definitely need is a certified base assessed value, because when they did that last year, it was on the prior fiscal year, tax year, and that will have changed. So that will need to be updated, and you would just sort of start the entire property tax TIF application process from square one at that point. But, you know, I think we can talk about how you guys would prefer to do that. There's some discretion there for the commission.
Okay, I think it's necessary.
I'm sorry?
Are you saying necessary? I thought I heard that.
I can't hear the question, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
Are you saying that's necessary?
I'm saying it's not necessary per se. I think the application does need to be revised. However, you have taken certain formal actions that are statutory procedural requirements that the commission could rely upon. But since we're at this juncture, you know, re-looking at it, you might want to start over. That's just going to delay things longer. It's going to take a little bit longer for everything to run the course. I think, if you know, in a most accelerated time frame from start to finish I've ever seen a TIF get done, TIF application sort of started and then created, is like 4 or 5 months. In this case, you wouldn't need to spend that much time if you were inclined to proceed to create the TIF. If you relied on the prior action, you might be able to do it in 2 months. But if it could take 6 months, it could take longer. You know, the development office has 60 days to look at it. They can ask for new information. You have to, you know, notice things by Class 2 legal ads, which, you know, requires 2 consecutive weeks of publication in the paper. There's just necessary deadlines you can't do anything about. So the timeline is what it is, and it depends on what the commission wants to do.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just hung up on this idea of whether we need to recertify the BAV. Does it need to be
That I
revised?
think you do need to do. Yeah.
Yes.
What was
May
that?
I?
By the what?
Base assessed value.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of questions for our county administrator. Which team, staff, department, whatever you want to call it, is handling this? Submitted the application to the West Virginia Department of Economic Development?
I'm going to look to John, because John Stump is the one who I've reached out to for. Did you submit it, John, or was that something that?
The application for the real property TIF, that has not yet been submitted. So the process, to summarize what Josh said, the process to create a TIF district to where we are today is the developer created an application. We submitted it to the county commission for review. The county commission adopted a resolution scheduling a public hearing. The public hearing was held. The next action by the county commission would be to adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of the tax increment financing application to the development office for development office approval. The development office, as Josh said, has 60 days to approve the application or deny the application. If the development office approves the application, the next step would be to come back to the county commission and ask for an order present an order for county commission's consideration, creating the TIF district and approving the project plan. So where we are today is we've held the public hearing, and the next step would be for the county commission to adopt the resolution submitting the application. Now, I would submit to you that the purpose of the public hearing is to take comment, obviously, from the public. It is not uncommon for a county commission to request changes to an application in between the public hearing and acting on the resolution submitting the application to the development office. So we'd be happy to supplement the application with a new certification of base assessed value. Otherwise, I think other than some dates, I don't know that there would be any significant revision to the application, but we would be happy to supplement it. Now, I mean, Josh is correct. The county commission, this action and creation of the TIF district is totally within the purview of the county commission. County commission can handle it however they wish. If the county commission wants to start the process over, that's a policy decision for the county commission. However, I think supplementing the application, present that back to the county commission with a new certification of base assessed value, would not be an uncommon approach at all.
Right. And we don't need the West Virginia Department of Economic Development's approval under the new law. Isn't that right? You can act independently.
That's
Not,
with respect to the excise tax diff. I believe what you're speaking to, Commissioner, is the excise tax district legislation has some language in it that seemed to delegate to the commission the power to authorize the district after the legislature had acted without the development office's involvement.
Okay, thank you. It's limited to the excise tax district, not the property tax district. Do I understand correctly?
correct, Commissioner, because the sales tax TIF is approved by the legislature. The real property TIF does not go to the legislature. The approving body is the West Virginia Department of Economic Development.
And earlier I was asking who submitted the application. What I was trying to ask, who submitted the application for the excise tax district? Do we know that?
Well, we prepared the application certainly and presented it to the county commission. My guess is following the resolution approving the submission of the application is that we, being Swan, likely me, sent the application to the development office with a copy to the county, just a letter saying, here's the application approved by the Jefferson County Commission. I don't remember specifically, but I think that would be typical in a developer-based transaction.
Is that application our public file review? I think it should be. And then the last question in one of the footnotes, 14, application letter from the assessor was not included with the application. Could you explain why not?
I believe at that point, I'd have to look back through the schedule. I'm not sure base assessed values, they were estimated at that point. And we were, I think, and again, I apologize, I may be getting my timeline confused. I believe we were waiting to get the base assessed values, but I may be wrong, Commissioner. If you would allow me to, I can look back and get an answer for you specifically, because like I said, I may be confusing the dates.
That's no problem. And while you're doing that, if you have any thoughts or recommendations on reassess value or all your
Certainly, yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Kraus again. I do think it's very important that we kind of pump the brakes a little bit. There is this lawsuit is pending, and these judges are deliberating, and we must wait and hear what they have to say. I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. We need to stop rolling so quickly downhill.
It's my understanding that hearing about the lawsuit, it sounded like it's been dismissed twice, and as zero merit, and I'll just go ahead and call it frivolous at best.
I don't think you have the authority to offer a legal opinion. I think that the judges are deliberating to wait and see what they have, what they decide to rule.
Note, well taken. Does any other commissioners have any questions? Anything? I just want to go back to one thing with Josh, and just to reiterate that the liability of the county. You had said earlier that there is no recourse to the county. So if they would not build for, I mean, I guess if they would not build for another 2 years, and there's bonds that are lingering out there, the county has no responsibility for those. I just wanted you to just reiterate that a little bit.
Right. So the TIF fund is going to be the collateral, part of the collateral for bonds. And again, I'm not speaking as bond counsel here. I think John could do that better than I can, but the bonds would be secured by the TIF fund. If the TIF fund is insolvent, yeah, the recourse is against that, or the developer is going to have to pledge, typically would pledge the real estate as well as additional security and collateral. So if there's defaults, there's going to be some recourse to the bondholders, but they're not going to be able to go into the general funds of the county to seek repayment for defaults under those obligations. At least I'm not aware of a manner in which they could do that. And again, like John, if you want to speak to that, so I'd be happy to hear what your comments are there. But typically speaking, the TIF Act prohibits the county from pledging the full faith and security credit of the county, and they cannot be general obligation TIF bonds. The TIF revenue bonds are solely secured by the TIF fund and additional collateral pledged by in this case Swan.
I think Josh just summarized that very well. The statute, the TIF statute, and certainly we can get this section of the statute and provide it to Edwina or Eddie to distribute, specifically states that not only it states the county cannot pledge its credit to the TIF bonds. So you have no liability. That's established by state law. I'd also like to speak to the lawsuit and the timing of the lawsuit. I mean, Commissioner Krause is absolutely correct that it is being considered by the Intermediate Court of Appeals. During the hearing, the Intermediate Court of Appeals said they would issue an order, as I understand it, I wasn't there, prior to the end of their term, which is in June. The process that we're at right now, if the commission were to approve a resolution authorizing the submission of the application, it would go to the development office. They would have 60 days to consider it, which would take us through April and May. So we would be in all likelihood at June before we would be back to you with an order actually creating the TIF district. And until the county commission enacts that order or the creating the TIF district, nothing's final at all. I mean, right now we're just going through the process. This is just one more step in the process, and submitting it to the app, updating the application, supplementing the application, and then approval from the county commission, submitting it to the development office just allows us to be prepared for whatever order the court may enter.
One other clarification, Commissioner, too, the creation of the district, the order creating the district doesn't authorize the bonds. If bonds are issued, they would be authorized under a subsequent authorizing resolution that the commission would consider at a later date. So there's different points at which the commission is vested with the sort of power to authorize different activities within the district.
At what point in this process do the public get the opportunity to comment?
If that's directed to me, I'll do my best to answer that. I mean, the public hearing, there was a public hearing held last summer with respect to the property tax TIF district. There was also a public hearing held with respect to the excise tax district creation back in 2022. The commission held a public hearing on that and did take the formal action of authorizing the submission of that application. So those points have happened. However, you know, you could call another hearing if you want. Certainly at any meeting that is scheduled for the commission to consider these actions, you can incorporate public comment into it. You know, I think that's a good question, and the commission should, you know, provide as much public dialogue as it thinks is necessary.
I agree. Thank you. I appreciate that.
One more point on that,
Yes,
Commissioner,
sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but certainly the development office will also accept comments, written comments on the TIF application. So there's
That's right.
there's no public comment is being foreclosed. It's
That's good to hear.
online.
It doesn't happen at our county commission meetings. Thank you.
There is a public hearing required by law on the resolution authorizing the submission of the application. Is that correct? Step 7 on the last page.
That's correct, Commissioner, and that was the last action by the commission on the real property TIF application. Was the public hearing was held and the resolution to approve the submission of the application to the development office was tabled.
Thank you.
Certainly.
All right, does any commissioners have any further questions?
Just out of curiosity, on the map, there's, I'm going to call it parcels 13 and 15 are not in the tourism development district outlined by the green line. Just curious, why is that?
We were creating a residential buffer.
No.
The people that live there and the.
Right, and it was requested by
Yeah, that's.
citizens, neighbors. Okay. Thanks.
Which is entirely reasonable, of course. And understandable.
All right. Any further questions? Good, Commissioner Tab.
Yeah, I'm just looking on section F of this information provided. And it looks like we need to update our application, to me. And that would involve the developer, so I just think through this process of getting the proper paperwork submitted and public hearings and make sure we all understand how this may happen, proper steps to follow.
I don't think it's clear who's working on it in our government.
Well,
I don't think it's clear who's working on it in our government. And I raised the question a couple times. So I think to that point, might be a good idea to have a point person
yes.
for your consideration, County Administrator Benitez. I don't know if that's engineering, planning and zoning or a different department. Something to think about.
So I would ask Mr. Gerald and Mr. Stump, when you work on TIFs with other counties, does it run through the county administration office? Does it go through the budget office? Does it go through their planning, zoning, and engineering? Does it go through the sheriff's office? What is usually customary?
Well, there's usually two primary county contacts. First, it would go through whatever form of county administration they have, whether it's a county manager or county administrator. And in the case of this district, we did work with Mr. Nissel, prior to his departure on the TIF district. We don't generally see planning and zoning involved because really the TIF application doesn't involve any aspect of planning and zoning, but the assessor is involved to certify the base assessed value. So that's it really the majority of the communication and certainly the only actions that are required other than obtaining that certification of base assessed value, which is really an administrative function. The only entity in the county level that's required to approve anything or take an official action is the county commission. And we would be happy to provide a revised application, supplement the application with a red line and show the changes in dates and any other changes that are necessary. Sorry, I apologize, Commissioner, I cut you off.
I was just saying, it sounds like then the responsibility falls on the county administrator.
This is Deborah. I just wanted to add something too. When Josh and I took a look at this, we were looking at an application from July 2023 that was included in the packet. There could have been other revisions since that time, but and there could have been things that just were oversights. It's just a matter of updating it and completing the pieces that were missing from that version that we saw. It's not necessarily that there was something wrong with that application.
Okay.
Yes, that was my understanding from the comments that were sent, that it needs to be updated, not that it was wrong, but it needs to be
Right.
updated. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does any of the commissioners have any further questions? Does any, the council either have any more statements or questions for us? All right. Well, it sounds like no one has any questions, our council nor our commissioners. So with that being said, if there's no other questions, if there's no other business that needs to come before this commission meeting, or excuse me, commission workshop this morning, we are adjourned. Thank you all for joining.
Thank
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.